question in the form that the amendment be agreed to. The question now is that the amendment be agreed to, and I call the member for Fairfax.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's not infrequent that the member for Fenner quotes Robert Menzies in this chamber. You would think the member for Fenner might be a closet Liberal. Until you hear the substance of his speeches and you realise that he reflects the same creeping to the left, the same socialist hysteria that the Labor Party has fallen into with their allies, the Greens. Of course, his speech was all full of this rhetoric of tax the rich, until he started quoting international figures suggesting if you look at Australia compared to the rest of the G20, there's scope to tax everyone more in Australia, Deputy Speaker. Let's just tax everyone more, and that is the proposal of the Labor Party. Of course, the crescendo, the finish, was how Labor has a plan for addressing phoenixing activity, when in truth he knows that the coalition has a Phoenix task force, that the coalition is now addressing these very issues. And when you are on the socialist left and you see a coalition government actually taking action on something that you should have been taking action on when you were in government on the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd era, what do? You get on the bandwagon. And that's all they have to offer. And we are here today to talk about something that the member for Fenner didn't really want to speak about, and that is, of course, the Medicare Levy and the Medicare Levy Surcharge Bill of 2017. They ignored that. Labor like to ignore this bill, firstly because they know where they support the increase in the Medicare levy, they have no intention of that increase in funds to pay for the NDIS, which is the intent of the coalition. Instead, they'll just take the money and use it elsewhere. And the second reason I suspect the member for Fenner didn't want to address the bill that we're here to speak about today is, despite his words, he knows that the bill being discussed today in fact helps those people in Australia who are most vulnerable. It's a broad-based levy based on the principle of the more you earn, the more you pay. And the most vulnerable in Australia need pay nothing at all. And so this bill ensures that $180 million will remain in our community and in the pockets of those most in need, for the families and individuals on the lowest incomes, for those unable to work, and for our pensioners and seniors. $60 million in 2017-18 alone retained in the community, Deputy Speaker. The bill ensures low-income earners will continue to receive relief from the Medicare levy through the low-income thresholds for singles, families, seniors and pensioners. By maintaining thresholds in line with the rise in the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, we ensure our most vulnerable Australians are treated fairly and protected from paying the Medicare levy through either complete exemption or through a phased discount system. Thresholds are also applied to ensure that people who pay no personal income due to their eligibility for structural offsets, such as the low-income tax offset or the seniors and pensioners tax offset, do not incur the Medicare levy. These thresholds, which come into effect on the 1st of July this year, will benefit directly around 1 million Australians. Deputy Speaker, the government is setting these new thresholds for one reason, and that's to ensure fairness. Fairness, a word that has become synonymous with this Turnbull government. The Medicare levy is fundamental for sustaining our healthcare system, a healthcare system that guarantees Medicare, which is in itself an essential part of a modern, caring society. Indeed, Medicare directly enables the concept of a shared well-being, a common good. That is why this government is committed to fully funding the Medicare Benefit Schedule and Pharmaceuticals Benefit Scheme, the PBS, through the Medicare Guarantee Fund, and most importantly, most significantly, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, Unlike the opposition, Deputy Speaker, this government recognises the full cost of supporting all Australians who are living with or supporting those with disabilities. The 0.5% increase in the Medicare levy to be implemented in 2 years' time will ensure the NDIS is fully funded. We are closing the $55.7 billion gap left by the previous Labor government, giving assurance to all of those who are living with a disability, assuring them that they matter, that we recognise and support their well-being as fellow citizens and as members of our community, giving assurance to all Australians that if they or a loved one are born or acquire a permanent and significant disability, they too will get the support that they need. These are assurances that the Labor opposition has failed to provide, assurances they continue to evade. How can Labor continue to deny the obvious? That they have not fully funded the NDIS. I just don't know this, Deputy Speaker. There are some good people on the other side. There are some very good people in the Labor Party. I believe that. I believe that. How can good people continue to deny the fact that they are leaving the NDIS shortchanged? It is an absolute disgrace, and that is why it's so important that we get this Medicare levy change through Parliament. See, the government's objective is clear: to fully fund the NDIS by increasing the Medicare levy, a broad-based levy. As I said earlier, in response to the member for Fenner's comments, if you're on a higher income, quite simply you pay more. If you earn less, you pay less. Basically, the more you earn, the more you pay. It's simple and it's fair. And as we see in this bill, there are clear provisions for our most vulnerable, for our lowest income earners, to pay nothing, as should be the case. Well, that's the Coalition's plan anyway, Deputy Speaker. Labor, on the other hand, sadly, will be happy for the Medicare levy to rise, but unlike the Coalition government, they do not plan to allocate the money raised to the NDIS. As always, Labor is happy to take the money, but they won't use the money to help the people in need. They would rather, and quite irresponsibly, leave the scheme critically shortchanged. Under the government's plan in 2016-17, it is anticipated that 10 million Australians will pay into the Medicare levy. This is surely a fair and reasonable ask of a sophisticated, caring society, a fair and reasonable ask for an insurance scheme for all Australians as a safety net against the crippling costs of living with permanent and significant disability. Deputy Speaker, disabilities can affect anyone at any time. In fact, every single week, 5 Australians suffer a spinal cord injury. 10 to 15 Australians sustain a severe brain injury. Every 13 hours, an Australian child is born with cerebral palsy. For those Australians, the NDIS will be there to support them. Over 460,000 Australians under the age of 65 will rely on the NDIS to build skills and capability to participate in the community, to participate in employment and sporting activities. I know in my part of the world, Deputy Speaker, on the Sunshine Coast, an estimated 4,790 people will be supported by the NDIS upon it being fully rolled out. By supporting this bill and other interlocking measures relating to the Medicare levy, and not resorting to puerile political brinksmanship, this parliament can allow our healthcare professionals to get on with the task of making the NDIS the best it can be. And on this basis, I commend the bill to the House.
Thank you. The question now